Bernard Tobin here for RealAgriculture.com. Today I'm at the Ontario Soil and Crop Improvement Association, and I'm talking with Mike Dorion from Living Soil Solutions. Hey, Mike, welcome to Ontario.
Cool. Thanks for having us, Bernard.
Hey, now your presentation, we've been talking about organic matter, we've been talking about dirt, and one thing that stuck with me was a line that you had, we want living soil, not dirt. Dirt is not dead. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so if we look at the relationship of soil, so because we've called things, you're dirty, or you're playing around with this and that, we've got this stigma now that everything's dirt, but dirt is dead. It doesn't have anything going on for it, but we have a handful of really healthy soil, and it's filled with crazy, crazy amounts of microorganisms that it's alive, like it's essentially a living being.
And you said, basically 80% of, the production of food or the production of growth happens underground. As farmers, we tend to manage more above ground than what we see, but why, tell us paint a picture of what's going on underground.
Yeah, so it's that full kind of out of sight, out of mind thing. So if we look at a plant growing and it's taking that energy from the sun, well, it's pumping a bunch of that energy down into the roots to attract the microbes to have an interaction. So it ends up becoming this symbiotic relationship. So the roots are providing sugars and proteins and amino acids for these microorganisms, and the microorganisms are the ones that are bringing all these nutrients to the actual plant root. So they're mining away using enzymes and acids out of the sand-silt clay and the organic matter, and taking those nutrients, turning them into a form that's soluble that the plant can now use. So they're the ones that are responsible for the nutrient cycling.
Yeah. Now you mentioned a couple of things, that are from a management perspective that I want to talk about, and our need basically to minimize tillage, and I guess the quote you had was tillage is like an earthquake, and just every day, and so some thoughts on tillage and how farmers can better manage their soils from that perspective.
Yeah, so it always comes down to there's always going to be a purpose for everything. So what I always push is let's try to minimize that disruption. So if we can minimize that tillage, then we're going to minimize the effect that we have on that living soil, those microbes that are in there, especially the fungal communities, because they're very delicate strands that spread out through the soil. So if you have something coming and flipping and tearing that soil apart, they're the first ones that get decimated.
And that's probably another way to manage organic matter as well, Mike. And you talked about the fact that it really is a bank account that you have to manage.
Yeah, so if we look at what the organisms are feeding on when they're not having that access to working with live plants, when we go into the dormant season or even in the winter, those organisms are eating on the organic matter. So it is their bank account. It's what's keeping them afloat. And if we just start to disrupt that and break up those aggregates and everything, then again, the organisms are just going to leave, or they're going to end up dying.
Now, you mentioned in your presentation today about, a forest. What could we learn from, how forests managing their ecosystem? When you talk to a group of farmers today, what do you steal from a forest for a row crop farmer?
Yeah, so if we look at a forest, nobody fertilizes a forest, nobody waters a forest. But then we look at a forest, they've got diversity. So this is where we start to get in those cover crops, because every time you work with a separate plant, you're having multiple organisms in the soil that are working with those plants as well. But then also the fact that forests don't get disrupted very often, so they have a chance to build that biology and that organic matter.
A couple of things you don't see in forests: compaction.
Exactly, not compaction, right? We might walk through it going for a hike, and you can feel that sponginess, but who can't say that we can't have that in our agricultural fields either?
And you probably see some better aggregation. Roots, the ability to drive deep.
Yeah, roots go really, really deep, and then they're starting to go down into those subsoils and find more minerals, find little pockets of water, and be able to bring that up into the tree and share that with any other growing plants that are around the area as well.
So, from a final question, and that is, we have a group of farmers here today. A lot of them, in corn, soy, wheat rotations, and just some thoughts on, from what you've seen about what they can really take home from your speech today.
Yeah, so when you're growing those typical crops, these guys are doing what they can to make some money. And I think if they can just look at it from a different perspective, that when you're going out and you're using your typical practices, what effects are you having on that plant? But now, what are you having on that soil? And if you are disrupting it or affecting it, what can you do to fix that or come behind that and replace what you've done?
Well, Mike, hey, thank you for your time today, and look forward to talking with you down the road.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Bernard. Pleasure.